So today we're going to try and make sense of what feels like a completely senseless war. We're going to trace this long, winding road of decisions that led Russia here into a conflict that just seems to defy all logic. And the big question is, how did a leader who was once seen as this master strategist end up on a path that, honestly, looks like total self-destruction?
Yeah, that quote really just nails it, doesn't it? Downright preposterous. That's exactly what it feels like. We're watching something that is just absurd. But the thing is, this didn't just happen overnight. It was a long time coming, like the quote says. It's the result of a whole series of choices, and each choice just took things a little further down a path that, when you look back now, seems completely and totally irrational.
All right, Section 1, a senseless battle. And there is no better place to see this whole paradox in action than what's happening right now in the city of Pokrovsk. I mean, it's a real puzzle. It makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, so let's break down this paradox of Pokrovsk, because this is where things get really weird. You've got a city of over 100,000 people, and guess what? Most of them are Russian-speaking. Not only that, but their mayor was part of the pro-Russian opposition bloc, so the city's leadership was historically friendly to Russia. This place should have been an asset, right? A friendly city. And yet, the Russian army is systematically destroying it, just wiping it off the map. It's bizarre.
So this is the big question we have to ask, right? Why is Russia spending trillions of rubles and sacrificing thousands of its own soldiers to annihilate a place that should have been an ally? It just doesn't add up. And to get to the answer, well, it's not simple. We've got to rewind the clock and look at how decision-making in the Kremlin has totally, fundamentally changed over the past 20 years.
Okay, so let's talk about the pragmatic Putin. Because to really get a handle on the irrationality of today, you have to remember the Putin of yesterday. This was a guy who was seen by everyone as a really shrewd pragmatist, a man who was all about goals, not ideology.
I mean, in his early years, Putin was a master of being flexible. He'd work with anyone to get what he wanted, even his biggest ideological opponents. He built relationships with Western leaders like George W. Bush, Angela Merkel, you name it. And just look at how he handled the Chechen war. I mean, that thing was a bloody mess. And what did he do? He didn't just fight, he co-opted his enemies. He took the Kadyrov, these former warlords who had literally declared jihad on Russia, and turned them into his most powerful allies. It was cynical, for sure, but it was also brutally effective. Pure pragmatism. And this right here, this shows you the shift perfectly. Look at his reaction to a pro-Western Ukraine at two different points in time. Back after the Orange Revolution in 2005, a pro-Western president comes to power. And Putin's response? He basically just keeps things businesslike. He plays it cool. Now fast forward to 2014. Another pro-Western government comes to power after Euromaidan. The result this time? Annexation and a proxy war. It's night and day. So the question is, what the heck changed? Why did he suddenly ditch this patient, pragmatic strategy that had worked so well for him before?
He used to have this thing down, which you could call the political pendulum. He understood that Ukraine's internal politics just naturally swung back and forth. So after the pro-Western guy Yushchenko, who became super unpopular by the end of his term, who did the Ukrainians elect in 2010? The pro-Kremlin Viktor Yanukovych. See, his patience paid off. Putin got exactly what he wanted just by waiting, by letting Ukrainian politics do its thing.
And that brings us to the Crimean gamble. This is really the first major break from that patient strategy. 2014, the annexation of Crimea. This is the moment when that calculated, pragmatic approach starts to look a lot more like high-stakes gambling. A move that had some pretty big wins, but also some absolutely devastating losses.
Okay, let's look at the balance sheet for the Crimean annexation. You can almost see the logic here from a really cynical point of view. On the tactical side, it was a home run. His approval ratings back in Russia skyrocketed. The military operation was swift, it was clean, it looked like a huge success story. But then you look at the strategic losses, and it's a disaster. He permanently alienated millions of Ukrainians. He basically created a unified Ukrainian national identity that was built on being against Russia. And this is a huge one, he took 2 million of Ukraine's most pro-Russian voters right out of the equation. By taking Crimea, he made it almost impossible for that political pendulum to ever swing back in his favor again.
All right, so if Crimea was a cynical gamble you could kind of wrap your head around, what came next in Donbas? Well, that was just a straight-up descent into an irrational quagmire. This is where the logic just completely falls apart. You see, the war in Donbas, it had no clear goals. It wasn't a quick win like Crimea. It was just this ugly, simmering, and frankly, pointless conflict. It took what was a prosperous industrial region and turned it into a total hellhole run by crime syndicates and warlords. It didn't accomplish any clear political goal for Russia. And the worst part? It ended up terrorizing the very same Russian-speaking people that Putin claimed he was there to protect. It makes no sense.
And if you need more proof that the 2022 invasion was completely irrational, just look at this timeline. This is probably the most damning piece of evidence. The war in Donbas was actually fizzling out. Look at the numbers. By 2021, the number of civilian deaths for the entire year, in both the DPR and LPR combined, was 8. Just 8. The conflict was de-escalating. It was fading away. So this whole justification for a massive invasion to stop a genocide, it just doesn't hold up. The facts on the ground told a completely different story.
Which brings us to the point of no return, February 2022. The ultimate catastrophic miscalculation. And the crazy part is, it came at the exact moment when a little more of that old patience could have paid off big time.
And here is the ultimate irony of this whole thing. Right before the full-scale invasion, that political pendulum in Ukraine was, you guessed it, starting to swing back toward Russia. Seriously, anti-Russian sentiment was actually starting to fade a bit. President Zelensky's approval ratings were tanking. A patient leader, the old Putin, could have used that. He could have leveraged it. But instead, he chose to just shatter the pendulum forever.
You know, this whole thing wasn't some unavoidable catastrophe. There were so many off-ramps, so many moments to turn back. On February 21st, he could have just stopped after recognizing the DPR and LPR. That could have been the end of it. Then, late February, when the plan to take Kyiv completely failed, he could have pulled back. In early March, instead of declaring the whole thing a success and locking himself into this failure, he could have found a way out. Even today, there are deals on the table that could end this. But at every single one of these moments, the choice was made to escalate, not de-escalate, to throw rationality out the window, just to avoid losing face.
Okay, to really drive home just how self-destructive this whole path has been, let's do a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine the worst possible Russophobe you can think of, like the ultimate enemy of Russia. What would be on their dream checklist? What would they want to see happen to Russia?
Well, that Russophobe's dream just came true. Check this out. They'd want to systematically flatten Russian-speaking towns? Check. Kill hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers and citizens? Check. Make millions of pro-Russian sympathizers homeless and turn them into enemies? Big check. Unite Ukraine permanently against Russia? Absolutely. Check. Rob future Russian generations of trillions of rubles? You bet. And make Russia an international pariah? Check, check, check. It's unbelievable. Putin's actions have literally achieved the perfect outcome for Russia's greatest imagined enemy. It's the ultimate irony.
And that brings us right back to where we started, the destruction of Pokrovsk. It's not a puzzle anymore, is it? It's the inevitable outcome of this deeply irrational path. It's the only place this road could lead. This is what happens when a leader throws pragmatism out the window for pride. When you trade a long-term strategy for a series of short-term gambles that just keep failing over and over again.
So, it really all boils down to one final, pretty sobering question, doesn't it? When a leader has absolute power, when there are no checks, no balances, who truly pays the price for their choices, for their miscalculations?